Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. The Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New York town.
What is up, Mets and baseball fans? Thank you all so much for chiming in for really an early day live stream. This is something that I definitely wasn't planning on, but as we've done plenty of live streams in the past, sometimes it's kind of breaking news topics that you feel are warranted. And also, I have a busy schedule later this evening. So while there's definitely more information to come out, not just later today, I'm sure, but throughout the coming days for the Mets and their present baseball operations and or GM search, a lot has transpired this morning that has taken up my entire day. I've done nothing but focus on this and prep for something that ultimately didn't happen. So, of course, folks, we're going to be breaking down everything that transpired at this point today regarding Matt Arnold, the supposed candidate for the Mets for present baseball operations, that falling through, why exactly it fell through, who's to blame here, if at all, how are the Mets looking when it comes to who actually is holding the cards here, who's actually in charge of making these decisions, pursuing certain candidates in the actual market for present baseball operations and GM, and so much more. A lot to get into today in a fairly short period of time. So stay tuned, folks. This will definitely be a good live stream, at least an eventful one to a certain extent. So thank you all so much, everybody that's first chiming in. I really appreciate it, folks. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button if you are in fact new. And if you're enjoying the stream, help us get to 100 likes by the end of the live stream. As always, whether you're watching this live or on replay, you guys know the drill by now. But I see Matthew, I see Jack, great member on the channel. Gerald, great member on the channel. Stevie, how's it going? And Sandy, a great member on the channel. Tom, Ed, going down the list further. Sherwood, thank you all so much. That's first chiming in, guys. Butta, Enrique, thank you all kindly. But we're going to just really jump right into this one, folks. I'm not going to waste any more of your time, because if you've been following along, then yes, you would be aware that a lot has happened with the Mets over just the past couple hours. You know, since I woke up today, there was a lot that was unraveling with Matt Arnold. We did a video on the channel yesterday regarding Matt Arnold, as he has been connected to the Mets and looking like at that point the Mets' top candidate for the position, just for things to fall short today in a dramatic fashion. So I'm going to be breaking down all the reports, all the conflicting reports that have taken place today, because my goodness gracious, this is peak, not even peak. This is telling that we have entered the offseason for the Mets, because you know very well we are in that state when I'm spending hours on end prepping my day in the assumption that something is going to happen just for it to not happen, the complete counter to happen regarding the Mets and Matt Arnold, him not coming to Queens, and just a lot of bad reporting, a lot of misinformation out there. And again, it's one of those things where all off season long, we're going to see stuff like this. So as I said plenty in previous live streams and going back to last off season, if the 2020-2021 offseason proved us anything, is that there's going to be so much that happens regarding the Mets with reports that either hold true and ones that don't hold true. So try not to buy in too much stock on one name, player, executive, whatever it's going to be, because rest assured, until it's pen to paper and that move is done, nothing is certain. But with saying that, folks, I see a lot of comments already in the chat. Roberto, great member on the channel, and everyone else, thank you all so much for being here, guys. I'm going to be answering all your questions the best I can if you're watching this live and on replay. Make sure to let me know your thoughts on the comments below as well. But starting off with the Brewers, okay? So if you guys have been following along, then you know that the Brewers have already denied the Mets not once but twice over the past calendar year in trying to actually have discussions and interview their top executive, that being David Stearns, who's their president of baseball operations. A year ago, the Mets tried to approach Stearns, who grew up a diehard Mets fan and started his career actually in the Mets organization, but the Brewers said no, and rightfully so. They have all the right to do that, knowing that would be a lateral move. So really wouldn't make sense for the Brewers to allow that interview to even take place. Fast forwarding a year later, the same thing happened with David Stearns, and he was always a pipe dream pick for the Mets and never felt likely. So that's something that, while it would have been a great pick, it was never certain to begin with at all, to put it lightly. But now getting into the next man up, the runner-up, if you will, the right-hand man of David Stearns, that being Matt Arnold. And reports yesterday, according to Mike Puma, really made it out to be that Matt Arnold was the top candidate for the Mets. Now, the Mets have potentially already given an offer to him, which would indicate that an interview was in place. But shortly after that, over the past couple hours after that, yesterday, at the time being live here, Andy Martino for SNY came out with factual reporting as well, saying that an interview has not taken place yet. And there was a lot of, rumors going back and forth yesterday. So we enter the morning today. And now what happened with Matt Arnold was a lot. It started out with, I believe, John Hayman, that came out and said that Matt Arnold, it doesn't necessarily feel likely that an interview will be allowed. And a lot of people are freaking out, including myself, just because naturally what happens is, and you guys know the drill by now, I shouldn't really beat a dead horse here, but if you're an opposing club and you have an executive that's being sought after by another team, but it's in a promotional role, naturally the common courtesy, the respect that's normally universal across the league is you allow that team to come in, have discussions, interview that executive, knowing that they would be in a role that's higher up, a promotion than what they currently have available to them with their current club. But the Brewers, after reports going back and forth saying that the Mets were going to be denied, then a report coming out saying that the Mets were given access by Michael Mayer, who's been very reputable, he's very reliable for the Mets, but even he ended up being wrong here, and he had to counter himself and saying after that he was wrong and he apologizes, because then Andy Martino came out and said, after reports already indicated that yes, Matt Arnold has taken his name out of consideration, he is no longer an option for the Mets in this position. But Andy Martino then came out and tweeted out, and through SNY as a whole, that the ultimate barrier was that the Mets were never given access to interview him. So this was a crazy fiasco to begin the start today at the time of being live here. I personally am not over it yet. It's something that I'm glad in the sense of it looks like that Matt Arnold wasn't available because an interview was not allowed, versus the Mets being full-on denied after doing an interview process, which is something that did happen with Scott Harris, the GM for the San Francisco Giants. And I don't believe the interview was in place with Peter Bendix for the Tampa Bay Rays, but he already took his name out of consideration. At least that's what reports are indicating before, interview was even there from what we know to this point. But now Matt Arnold is someone that, from all accounts, great resume, fantastic human being from all that we see to this point, was denied access from the Brewers, from his own ownership, to have an interview done with the Mets. So if there's one person that we can probably blame more than anyone to this point, it is Brewers ownership. Now, I know you might be wondering, how is a team allowed to deny access to an interview when it's in a promotional role? Normally that doesn't happen, and you're absolutely right. It's not a common thing that happens in baseball at all. It's really an anomaly situation that's happened here. Now, what are the reasons from Brewers ownership? I don't really know. It seems like if there's one thing that you could point out about Steve Cohen, is that there is still an intimidation factor with him to a certain extent, knowing that he's this big hotshot multi-billionaire that comes into ownership for the Mets over the past year and is trying to build a successful club just like that. And not a lot of teams are interested in that. At least owners don't like the look of that from how Cohen has went about things since he became an owner. So if there's anything that you could really maybe put two and two together as an assumption from the Brewers denying, outside of them wanting to make sure that they don't lose Arnold, given he's a great mind, it's also the Steve Cohen factor, knowing who he is. And maybe they don't like the fact that Steve Cohen being the driving force here. Again, there's a lot of assumptions that we can make until any further reports come out. But I'm going to go right now with saying that, yes, it's unfortunate, but we do have the Brewers to blame first and foremost than anyone else regarding what has transpired today and the Mets not even being allowed to get an interview done for what would have been a promotional role. Now, before I go further, and I see a lot of comments, guys, I'll be getting to them. Don't worry. So again, hold your thoughts on that. I have been told in the chat to check a John Hayman tweet, so I'm going to do that right now, and then we will go from there, folks. So bear with me 1 second. Wow. Okay. Well, there you go. See, it only took 10 minutes into the stream. I'm glad this came out. So John Hayman, who covers the MLB, obviously, one of the main people you think of when you think about MLB analysts, just came out with a tweet over the past couple minutes that said, Brewers GM Matt Arnold will be gaining an extension with the Brew Crew rather than a chance to interview with the Mets. People do love Milwaukee. Okay. So it seems like, one, the Mets were denied even an interview, and two, it looks like that also Matt Arnold took his name out. So it looks like that from the Brewers not allowing an interview, they also didn't allow it because maybe Matt Arnold had an understanding that he was going to be extended. So this is the Brewers' way of, justifying their actions, clearly. So Matt Arnold gets an extension, and that is going in hand with why he was not an option for the Mets after the Mets originally pursued him. So, yeah, that's really all there is to know regarding that from John Hayman. So again, to recap what has happened at this point, a lot of hecticness happened today. Matt Arnold looked like a possibility. Then he became not a possibility. And the wonder was, okay, did he fall on deny the Mets while they even had an interview? No, it was the fact that the Brewers denied an interview. And in doing so, they also gave an extension to Matt Arnold to stay as a GM for a longer term. So that makes more sense to me, okay? As someone that is still bothered by the fact that the Mets were not given at least an interview, knowing it's a promotional role. And there were other reports that indicate that, there very well could have been a player involved that they were looking for from the Brewers side for compensation. No less, I'm glad this report came out. That definitely clears the air a bit, because from the Brewers side of things, if they have full intentions of extending him, especially, and that's something that Arnold has interest in, then that makes far more sense than what the reports have indicated over the past hour or two prior to this point. So that's okay. Still unfortunate, I would say, more than anything else, but knowing that an extension is in place does make a lot more sense than what it did before. So we have cleared the air there to a certain extent, I would say, folks. A lot of people love to use the Mets. I mean, that's a fair comment as well, because you have to wonder now, the Matt Arnold talk, was this something where the Brewers had a discussion with Arnold and Arnold was saying, either allow me to do the interview or give me an extension? Could he have played his hand? Maybe. Again, until we see further reports that may come out either throughout the remainder of this live stream or at different times or not at all, that could be a possibility. But again, I'm not going to really assume that far, but that is a logical way of going about things in the thought process here, in my opinion, at least. But to recap again, the Mets were denied access to, in fact, interview a guy like Matt Arnold, who at the point from Mike Puma, at least, looks like he was the favorite or at least one of the top guys. So now that Arnold is out of the question, let's talk about the deja vu for the past year. Okay, so something that was of concern to me, and I'm sure of concern to many Mets fans going into this offseason, was how much would this offseason, when it comes to searching for president of baseball operations and or GM, would be the same as last year when the Mets were denied access to basically all the executives that they were looking for. And some of them were justified, or, it made sense because they were lateral moves. And others were a little head scratching because they weren't lateral moves. They could have very well been promotional. I'm trying to remember all the candidates that were connected to the Mets last year, but no less, this is another year now where the Mets have not had anything easy in this search. And I really don't think you can blame much on the Mets to this point, at least, because out of all the people that have been out of the running now, between Billy Beane, who had family reasons and logical reasons as to why it wasn't, and that was never really a strong fit, meaning that was a pipe dream. David Stern's pipe dream lateral move didn't make sense. Theo Epstein was always one that a lot of hurdles would have had to happen for him to part ways with what he's currently doing in the MLB to then come to the Mets, to then Scott Harris, who's a San Francisco native and who just became GM recently for the Giants over the past couple of years. I believe he started in 2019. So he's very new there as GM for the Giants, and he likes that area. Peter Bendix, we don't have the answers to at this point, and now we have the answers to Matt Arnold. So there's really only one out of all of them where we don't necessarily have the answers as to why they denied the Mets or why it wasn't a fit to begin with. But it's clearly telling that the Mets have not had an easy process at all in trying to get any of these guys. And I don't think it's nearly as much of an issue in drawing them as it is with the hurdles with getting permission from respective ownership from fellow clubs, along with making sure that it's a promotional move. Because some of these weren't even promotional moves, lateral moves, I said. So this is going to be very interesting now how the Mets approach things going forward. But something that I really want to emphasize with everyone that's chiming into the live stream, either if you're watching this live now or on replay, is the Steve Cohen effect. And this is a report that originally came out through Tim Britton, who came out with an awesome article earlier this morning. I have it in the linked description down below. Please make sure to check it out if you haven't already, folks. But it does have a paywall, so I'll summarize it quick. Along with Deja Thozar just came out with a report recently, too, how Steve Cohen is in charge for this search. And in case you guys are unaware about that, since Steve Cohen has come back from vacation, because I believe he was on vacation in Paris, he was on vacation in Europe. He came back in some point in October. So he started things a little bit late. But the article would indicate that it's not an issue. And Cohen has been leading the charge by far for a president of baseball operations and or GM, to the point where Sandy has had very little input. Now, hearing this, I'm not against this per se, but my point is, if you brought Sandy back and Sandy's comments to the media heading into the offseason were that his role is to get these hires in and really oversee things versus being involved day to day, then what is Sandy's role right now? It seems like Sandy's an outsider. And for a lot of people that I know that are watching this live or on replay that are not in favor of Sandy to begin with, and you go to the lengths of basically changing the guard of who's having control. Remember, Sandy was the one really having control of everything last offseason. Now it's Steve. If Steve's running the show the way that reports are indicating now, what is Sandy's role? Why is he even here? I don't understand the thought process to even have Sandy a part of things if he's having very little input. When the hire from Sandy's standpoint is, in fact, his job is to make these hires. He is the one that's supposed to go out there and make the biggest impact and really bring these guys in. Then he could have his hands away from day-to-day operations. So I genuinely do not understand where this lies for his future. Could this mean that maybe Sandy's on his way out? Potentially. I have no clue. But as a team president, his job going into the offseason was to pursue, seek, and make these hires for president of baseball operations, GM, etc. And now you're telling me that he isn't even the factor here? It's Steve Cohen running the show. It's Steve Cohen, the one that reached out to actually Scott Harris for the San Francisco Giants, even for that interview. It's Steve Cohen that's been the driving force for Matt Arnold here, among other candidates that they have available right now, either reported that we have on the screen, that's few right now, or multiple that we have yet to talk about because they're not made public. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why the Mets are in a spot right now where they have Sandy just to not use him. Now, say what you will about Sandy Alderson, whether you're for or against him, but from the forefront, this looks like Alderson is someone that they originally put faith and trust in. And again, this is me putting two and two together, so please do not try to buy too much into this. I'm kind of just venting right now, sharing my initial thoughts. But Sandy had control last offseason and making these hires, and we saw what happened. Now, fast forwarding things, he has his hands out of things. He only has his hands just as involved as Cohen wants him to be. But Steve is the leader in charge here. He's the one actually pursuing, going forward here with these discussions, with trying to get these interviews done. So it leaves me wondering, and for everyone that's watching this, however you're watching, please let me know what your thoughts are if you're watching live or in the comments below on Sandy Alderson. And what does this tell you about him? Does this tell you that the Mets had faith in him and now they don't? That they feel that Steve Cohen feels that he needs to, keep things in his own hands now and push forward to actually get things done? What is happening here? It's the biggest question mark for me. And as soon as I saw that report, I really was taken back just by the notion of Sandy's entire job is being covered by Steve Cohen right now. And I'm exaggerating because Sandy is still having to say here from what Deja's report came out and said. I'm going to be sharing that with you guys in a moment. But it's a head scratcher for me, guys. It really is a head scratcher. And the report from Tim Britton went on to say that the Mets are willing, feel comfortable with some in-house options that they have. So that's something that personally I don't love, just because I feel like if you're staying in-house with people for either president baseball operations or GM, it really defeats the purpose of having this strict motive of going out this offseason and getting the right moves done. And yes, I know that they've been denied access for plenty that have been turned down, but really none of it has been the Mets' fault to this point from what we've seen. So they have other good options out there, really strong ones for that matter. But if they stick with people in the organization, I feel like that is showing of what transpired last offseason again to a certain extent, where it's the deja vu effect once more, where you're settling for less. Not that the people will not say do a good job. Again, we don't know. But that's a lot of uncertainty when the Mets had a clear motive going into the offseason that they would really try to be exploring options externally more than anything else. So I will say that I do not think that's a slam dunk that the Mets are going to be strictly pursuing on in-house options. They are not. They are just as much involved external, if not more than they are internally. But that has been reported over the past day now that the Mets do have options internally. Should they in fact, have to basically, I guess you could even go the lengths of saying a last resort type thing, right? Because other than that, I don't really know how else to view it. Because if you miss out on some guys and they don't go your way, but it's really not your fault, I understand. But are the Mets in a position now that Matt Arnold is not an option, that they feel that a president baseball operations search is not an option? Are they still pursuing a president baseball operations, or are they pivoting more the GM aspect like they did last year? That's something that we're going to find out very soon. We may find out as soon as, shortly after you're watching this, we may find out in the coming days. But all I care about most here is that whatever route the Mets go down, they do not settle for less, okay? There are always good options. Now, I know that they have their hands tied right now, just like last offseason with a lot of the people that they pursued, but there's also a lot of options out there externally for some great mind executives, and some of them that we have listed still that have not reportedly been out of the running, nor have we really heard anything about them since they were originally connected to the Mets, however, is Josh Burns, who's a higher-up executive in the Dodgers organization, and Bobby Heck, who's a higher-up executive in the Tampa Bay Rays organization, who has been connected to the Mets going back to last offseason, which again he has a great resume. So very, very interesting what's transpiring right now. But I think what really needs to be addressed for everyone that's listening to is I don't think we can put much blame on the Mets right now. I think this is a perfect PR with how factual and unfactual the reporting has been at this point, especially with the Matt Arnold, debacle, everything that's transpired there. It's easy to look at this and say that, oh, this is all the Mets' fault, when in reality, they've been denied access 3 times now over the past year by the Brewers for executives. They have been turned down by really only 2 executives, and those 2 executives are both that had strong reasoning, that were actual realistic picks, I should say, taking out the Billy Beane, the Stearns, and the Theo Epstein. Harris wanting to stay in San Francisco where he's a native, where he just got his career started with San Francisco, makes oodles amount of sense. Peter Bendix is the only one where I don't know the reasoning for it at this point. I just know that from what reports have indicated that his name is out of the running. So Cohen looks like he's in charge right now. What does that mean? What is the fate of Sandy Alderson's future? I don't know. But like everything else, we are going to find out at some point, if at all. Just a lot of questionable things. But I will say this report came out from Deja regarding Steve Cohen being in charge here. And she came out with this article, and I'm really not sure how to feel about it, because I know that as soon as I read this off to you guys, some of you guys know this already if you're watching by now, some of you don't. And again, folks, if you're enjoying this live stream, no less, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe on. Help us get to 100 likes for the live stream goal whenever we can. If we have already, if you're watching a replay, then awesome. And if we haven't, thank you so much for helping us get there, folks. But she came out with an article which was very interesting. This is at 1:38 p.m. We're at 2:24 at the time of being live here. And it says an update on the Mets front office search and how Steve Cohen is leading the process, with this amusing nugget regarding Chris Christie's involvement. Yes, Chris Christie of New Jersey. This piece is interesting. It says the following: Cohen is most likely talking with uninformed people. Let me emphasize that this piece already starts with saying mostly. My mistake. I read that wrong. Cohen is mostly talking with uninformed people like former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. In case you guys don't know, Chris Christie and Steve Cohen are very close friends. Christie is an advisor for Cohen and the Mets since Cohen came into ownership. They go back years upon years upon years. I know a lot of you guys probably either love or hate Chris Christie. I'm well aware on how politics works. Like former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and folks at his hedge fund, Point 72, who serve as some of his advisors during the search, according to a source familiar with the situation. Now, again, how factual this is, I'm not sure. This very well could be on point. This very well could not. Deja is someone that I don't necessarily refer to much when it comes to Mets news. So take that as you will. This is not a slight on her in any sense. But like all the rest of the Mets reporting, even the most reputable people have been wrong this offseason at times. So it's hard to really grab how much stock I should put into this. But she went on to further say Christie joined the Mets board of directors in February, and his son Andrew also works for the Mets as the coordinator of amateur and international scouting. Cohen keeps Alderson informed on the status of the search and occasionally asks him to dig around for more candidates per the source. So according to this report, it says that Alderson obviously is involved, but not nearly to the likelihood that you would initially think that he would be, saying that, they keep him around, so to speak. So he's there, but he is not the driving force. And the Chris Christie factor is something that's going to really bother a lot of people, if that holds true or not. My take on it is all that matters to me is that they get the right hires in. I genuinely don't care about how they're getting there as long as they get there. If they do not get the right hires in, then in my mind, there's an issue. And I see that my connection might be lagging a little bit. So if I'm, lagging or looking a little pixelated right now, I apologize, guys. But I'm going to read some of your comments quick, and then I'm going to go from there because I have a lot more that I need to say on this. Again, thank you all so much for chiming in, folks. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys are enjoying the live stream. What has been a hectic day in Mets land, to put it lightly. I think it has something to do with Scott Boras? No, because the Kumar sign, I don't think so at all. No, I think that's really stretching. Do I feel like the Wilpons feed the Mets media stories and kept them more in a loop than Cohen? Feel like they're sour, and you could see it in almost all reports. I mean, look, the Wilpons own SNY, so take that as you will. But that's a tough question to answer right now. But the Wilpons do still own SNY. So, take that however you may. Offer Sabian a contract today. We'll be gaining Sabian a little bit more in a second here. SNY report, Ben Zosmer, Tommy Tanuis, Mark Tremuta being considered as internal candidates. Yes, I'm aware of that. Those are some of the names that have been connected to the Mets that are internally being considered should the Mets not really get the external options that they're looking for. But again, from how that comes off just from the forefront, that looks like you're settling for less. So I'm going to double check on the SNY report right now, just see if that's like new. Because I know about the 2 names. I did not know about the 3 right now. But yes, the Mets have been considering those people for internal options as of now. Let's see. Who's my top choice for president of baseball operations now? I don't really have a top choice. 1, because I'm not trying to get my hopes up. And 2, I don't know what options are potentially out there that aren't reported. And I think something that from what reports have indicated, and again, I know that it's sounding hypocritical, but the Mets are trying to keep things underground with this whole search. And obviously that has not happened. And they have the media to blame for that. So the question is, if the Mets are really adamant to keeping things underground, if they keep it underground, then does that mean that whoever hire comes into place is not going to be someone that maybe either we were expecting or that at least was leaked out there and it's kind of a surprise, if you will, when it comes to fruition? Maybe it's a random report. Think about the Francisco Lindor trade, for instance, out of nowhere, breaking news that the Mets are trading for Lindor and Cookie. Like no one outside of, some assumption, there really wasn't a lot to think that was going to happen, especially at that point in time. So the Mets have plenty of time that they're still working with right now, but we are getting to the point, okay, where this search is really ramped up and they've tried for multiple people. And while I really do not believe they're at fault for the majority, if not all of them here, then, this still is not a good look any which way you point at things. It's a bad look by the media from trying to make the Mets look bad, and it's just a bad look overall that the Mets, to this point, unfortunately, have not been able to luck out. And again, this is more of a luck factor than anything else. The only, I think, critique you could give the Mets at this point is how much, if at all, they prioritize Theo Epstein, Billy Beane, David Stearns. Is that something that they shouldn't have considered as much as they did? How much consideration do they actually put in? I really don't think that ties into things much here, especially knowing that, all those guys were really ones that didn't hold the Mets back from seeking other options. And rightfully so, if I'm a top exec in the Mets front office, I want to seek those names, probably first and foremost, given their immaculate resumes. So in a nutshell, we're in a spot right now for the Mets where there's going to be plenty to come out. This will not be the last time that we're talking about all this. And it's really just an ever moving ball. This is ever changing, right? There's stuff that's going to be coming out probably later today into tomorrow or beyond. Maybe we'll reach a stalemate for a little bit. I'm not sure, but I will tell you that a lot is coming of this, a lot of it. And going to Brian Sabean, which I want to touch on here for a second. Sabean, as we talked about in our previous live stream, has openly said, according to reports, that he is interested in the Mets job for president of baseball operations. Again, Sabean was the longtime GM of the San Francisco Giants when they won not one, but two, but three World Series in the 2010s. He is someone that is more old school minded. So if you bring Sabean as president of baseball operations, naturally it would just make sense to have someone that's maybe younger, more analytically driven that could be in the GM role, whether that's someone within the Mets organization or if that's someone elsewhere to be determined. But there's been nothing to indicate that the Mets have pushed for Sabean outside of him showing interest. So should the Mets go after Sabean, I think he's definitely someone that you have to at least have considered for sure. And I hope for the Mets' sake that if these other executives truly just don't become available because owners are being stubborn, then they can at least go to Sabean and knowing the kind of resume that he has had and go from there. So I'm not against Sabean. To this point, we still don't know if the Mets are even pursuing him, if they're going to pursue him or anything along those lines. From everything that we've seen to this point, it seems like the Mets and Steve Cohen in particular are looking for younger minded executives. And that could be the reason why they don't pursue Sabean in the end. But again, it's a fluent situation. It's ever moving, and we're going to continue to address it as we go. And hold on for 1 second, guys. I'm only paused because I'm just scouring through the web as we speak right now, as we're live here. Just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything to this point. The search is exhausting, and we still need a GM, manager, coaching staff, and half a roster. Yeah, I know, Anthony. Shout out to Anthony, guys, at Subway to Shea. Great Mets podcast. Great guys been on the channel before. I'm sure he will on again. Hope you're doing well, Anthony. Please make sure to check him out, guys. He does great stuff for sure regarding the Mets. Interview Sabean or Ray to get something going. Again, I think that's a fair argument. Whether they pursue that route or not, we still don't know. So in a nutshell, I think what I take out of this more than anything, to be honest with you folks right now, is the fact that Cohen's running the show. Okay. Sandy is not the one that's the driving force like he was last offseason. Why is that? Is Sandy leaving a bad impression to either Cohen or to the start of the search that's led to Cohen not liking how he started things? Man, I really wish I could have these questions answered, but I do believe that the Mets are still in a very strong spot to get hires in and to get the job done for sure. I do not think that this is panic mode by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever. As I said in my video on Arnold yesterday, that even the scenario where Arnold is denied, it would be unbelievably unfortunate, but the Mets still have options here. But I think whether they stay internal or go external will be a telltale sign to a certain extent of them not getting what they were looking for again. If the Mets stick with people in-house right now, not even referring to Zach Scott, I think Zach Scott is more so on the outside looking in on possibility right now. I don't think he's completely out, but he does not feel strong because what Sandy and has said and what's been reported is that there's been little, if at all, any connection with Zach Scott since the whole DUI incident over the past couple months. So they're just in a spot right now where they unfortunately have not lucked out at all. And I do not blame them much for this, but I really want to know, once this kind of unfolds, once it wraps up, why Sandy's impact isn't nearly as prominent as what it was last year. And this is not me saying that I want Sandy to have that impact, because I'm not saying that at all. My point is, that's his job. So why isn't he in the position to do what he was asked of going into this offseason? Again, just very, very peculiar in my mind. And I think that's what I've taken by far the most today of what has been a hectic start of the day. This was a Wednesday. I'm getting my days confused with Ray on the Mets search for president of baseball operations and GM. Sandy is almost 74. Maybe he's done with baseball. He's not going to be with the Mets very long. And he's made that abundantly clear. He said that he does not want to be involved much, if at all, with day-to-day operations, unless whoever the new hires are that come in place ask him to. Sandy was never supposed to be handling day-to-day ops. And that's the whole point of getting these hires in. And I do not think Sandy will be here long-term at all. He's made that abundantly clear that he does not plan to, nor should he, right? So I don't think that he's done with the Mets right now. Again, I'm left scratching my head on why Sandy is not in the role that he's supposed to be in right now. Let's put it that way. Not panicking necessarily, but this is driving me to drink. Considering it's 2:40 p.m. Eastern time. Okay. Do I think that Brian is better served as an outfielder for the Mets to replace Conforto? No, I wouldn't necessarily say that. But again, that's like discussions for other days regarding my videos. So if you want to check those out, if you haven't already, please do. And free agency discussion. We're really not in that talk right now. That's for separate content. But again, we'll be talking about Bryant plenty. I'm sure we will as we get into the offseason. Don't be surprised if Sandy steps down soon after the hiring. I have a good feeling. I mean, that could be a potential, especially in the scenario where Cohen is the driving force still and they get a hire in. It wouldn't surprise me at all, because at that point, what is Sandy's role, right? If they get all these hires in. So that's fair. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not, though, because again, a lot of uncertainty to this point. And I don't know where we are in the like count again, folks. But again, if you were enjoying this live stream and you want to see more consistent Mets content like this, you guys know the drill by now. We're always on top of everything that's transpiring regarding the Mets and their search and everything Mets. So make sure to smash that like and subscribe on to help us get 10K subs by the winter meetings. And also help us get to 100 likes here in the live stream. Thank you so much in advance, folks. And yeah, just stay tuned. I do have a busy weekend coming up. I've said that before and I'll say that again. So just keep that in mind. If stuff happens that's of significance on certain times, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I may be delayed on that. I'm hoping I'm not, but if I am, it's just because I have a lot going on personally and with the holiday weekend. So just keep that in mind, folks. But really, really hoping the Mets just don't screw me over and have some, groundbreaking news happen for like the one time I'm actually not in this chair every day, that I usually am throughout the week. Mets will end up hiring 3 nobodies for president of baseball operations, GM, and manager. Quite the optimist are you, Ben. Sandy's hire gave the Mets a black eye. I think to a certain extent, you can make that argument, even though I will say that when Sandy made the hire of Jared Porter, it was a really good hire on paper. And Porter got the Lindor trade done quick. And you had a feeling that there was going to be quite an aggressiveness continued for the Mets and their approach to free agency and the trade market for the remainder of the offseason last year. But then everything unraveled with Jared Porter. So how much do you blame that on Sandy for not being aware of that? Again, I really don't think you blame much on him at all. I don't think you blame any on him, given how that report came out through ESPN. It literally felt like it was a recipe for disaster. Oh, we're going to wait until the Mets hire him. Then we're going to drop this a nuke on you. But yeah, I mean, look, Sandy, between not just Jared Porter, but Zach Scott, who looked fine, had the DUI, that could be all she wrote. Like that could be enough for Cohen to be like, all right, we need to have a change of the mindset here on how we approach things. That's not outlandish to believe either. I just think Sandy was brought in to alleviate other owners' potential concerns. I agree. I 100% agree with you. I think that was the mindset from the beginning, and that's what's been reported. So, yeah, I think you're spot on with that one. Carlos, the Mets don't have a president of baseball operations yet. That's what we're discussing right now. All the reports that's been going on with them to this point. But yeah, no, I think you're spot on, Michael. That's exactly why Sandy was brought in, to kind of help guide Steve and potentially come off more appealing to separate owners across the league. And, Steve coming in and, having these moves be had. But you can clearly tell that a lot's changed in a short period of time, just a calendar year, on how Cohen is operating. Enrique, thank you so much for the $10 donation. I appreciate that. Let's get some dono hype in the chat for my man Enrique. He's been a great supporter on the channel. Thank you so much again, my man. You know that means a ton to me. I hope you're doing well. So thank you again for that, buddy. Hype in the chat for Enrique. We can't make moves without present baseball operations. And no, that's not true. The Mets may even pivot to a scenario where they just stick with a GM and don't have a present baseball operations again for another year. But again, if we're talking about hypocrisy, this completely contradicts I should say, to what Sandy said going into the offseason, how basically first and foremost the priority is present baseball operations going from there. Are the Mets really going to go another year without present baseball ops? I can understand it if there's truly no one available that's to their liking again. That makes sense. They don't want to make a hire just for the sake of making a hire. But at some point, they need to draw a line and realize that this needs to be had here. They can operate fine without a present baseball operations, but the point is to have one in and get that stability. If we go with just a GM next year, or whoever it may be, I'm left filled with uncertainty again, heading into the remainder of the offseason, the winter meetings, and next year for this season. I think the Mets are trying their best to bring the comfortability of getting all these hires in. But of course, in typical, unfortunately, Mets fashion, again, this is not on them. I do not stand by the notion that it is. I think it's more so on just people not being available again. They're in a deja vu effect as they were last year, where their hands are pretty tied since the search has begun. Yeah, I mean, I don't like it that the Mets were denied interview for Matt Arnold. I understand the Brewers incent him more now, however, that they've extended him. Like, that makes a lot more sense than just denying the Mets for the sake of denying them because they don't want the Mets to even have consideration for Matt Arnold. But I think that the Steve Cohen effect is here. How, to what degree? Don't necessarily know, but it seems like Cohen is attractive to executives, but he's not necessarily attractive to team owners. And those owners are the ones that hold those executives that the Mets have shown interest in, and that will continue to. So we're going to see this unravel more and more as we go about this. But rest assured, we're going to have answers, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about those answers. We still just don't have them yet. And it's frustrating. I'm not going to lie. I was hoping that we would have had good news on Arnold today. Spent literally multiple hours prepping everything, and then just for the bam, that it doesn't happen. And again, this was not me getting my hopes up. I was just, really hoping that we would at least get a decision made now, knowing that Arnold has a really strong resume. So I wasn't against him at all. So that's why there was further enticement on my end and a lot of fellow Mets fans' end for wanting it to happen. I talked about Jeff Lunau a bit. He has a really good resume when you're talking about what he has done as an executive. Obviously, what's going to loom over him is the Astros Sheen scandal. So I don't think Lunau's likely at all. He's definitely proven himself as a very great, he's a really strong mind. But to suggest that the Mets will go after him, there's been nothing to suggest that at this point other than speculation. That's literally it. There's been nothing. So by no means am I going to bet that he will be a possibility. I see a $5 donation here from Ferrari Frank. Thank you so much for that, my man. I appreciate that. Hype in the chat for Frank for the $5 donation. Thank you so much, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate the support, my guy. That means a lot. Don't be bothered by my silence currently, folks. I'm just reading up on things right now to make sure I'm not missing anything for you all while we're live. Oh, Frank, I'll definitely check it out, my man. Thank you again for the donation. I appreciate the offer, no less. That means a lot, buddy. Thank you. Very kind of you. I feel pretty strong when I say that there's going to be a decent amount more reporting that comes out just under this President Baseball Operations and GM search process that's very contradictory. I think it's inevitable that we're going to see reports come out fairly soon on another name or about an interview, and then oh, it's not going to happen. Oh, it's going to happen. Until we get the pen and paper when everything's done, it's going to be a constant seesaw. There's been nothing to indicate otherwise at this point. Unhinged Yanks, what's up, my man? Everyone shout at Pat. Unhinged Yankees a beauty. Where can I submit my application, become GM? Oh yeah, you just got to go all the way to the bottom, Pat. By far past the captain, because that's who I am. You got to go like all the way to the bottom. Like pond scum level. That's where you can submit it. It'll take a while to get back to you, but we'll get back soon enough, Pat. Just stay patient. All jokes aside, though, hope you're doing well, buddy. I think Andy has been on everything so far. He has been. I don't necessarily love how he approaches it. I'm not an Andy Martino fan. I made that abundantly clear. But we'll see. Andy has been more right by far than he has been wrong to this point in his reporting. Bobby Heck is I believe he's the assistant to the GM for Tampa Bay. He has a very good resume. Is that where I might be getting him? Yeah, I think that's Bobby Heck. I'm not getting him confused with Pierre Bendix, I don't think. Ethan, I think Brian Sabian is definitely a guy that should be of consideration. Whether they, in fact, keep him in consideration, actually consider him, I should say, we don't know. It's all just speculation right now, but he has voiced that he is interested. We need someone ASAP if we want to be able to sign guys quickly. I agree, but something that is going to be more apparent soon is the CBA. If you guys don't know, a new CBA agreement is going to be happening in December, and there's been increasing belief that we may very well have a lockout, which I'm not happy about. I don't want that at all. Let's go. Shut up, Pat. I'm really not happy about that at all. But if the CBA, which is a stalemate, winter meetings will be pushed. For how long? I have no clue. So that, I'm sure, is a factor to a certain extent as well that isn't being talked about nearly enough. And I feel like as we get closer to December, we're going to be talking about that more. And of course, when the actual CBA discussions are ongoing, that process, we'll be talking about it all too. Frank with the membership. Thank you so much for the membership, Frank. First, the donation, now the membership. You're a beauty. Thank you so much for that. It means a lot. Got a new member. Guys, let's get some more hype in the chat for Frank for becoming a new member on WardyNYM. Thank you so much for that, buddy. What's up, Darren? Great member on the channel. Hey, Worry, I'm starting to get worried seeing a lot of posts online about how the start of the season could be very well pushed back. The strike happens. Oh, see, Darren, I didn't even read your comment. I just read it now. See, people seem convinced it's going to happen. Yeah, I really hope it doesn't. But yes, there is a possibility that the season does not start on time. That'll suck. That'll really suck. I do not want that to happen at all. But that is for sure a possibility. Unhinged Yanks with the new membership. Pat with the membership. Thank you so much for that, Pat. Love you, buddy. That means a lot. Everyone, please make sure to subscribe to Unhinged Yankees again. I don't care if you hate the Yankees. You got to love Pat. Please make sure to check him out. He does great content on the Yankees and overall baseball. So make sure to check him out. Thank you so much for the membership as well, buddy. That really does mean a lot. But that's really going to wrap things up, folks. I'll start taking questions now for the next couple minutes. I will probably go upwards of an hour here, and then that's where we will cap things off today. Again, probably would have done this live stream later in the day today, but I have some things that I need to attend to. So hopefully, all I can say is that not too much happens after being live here in the next 24 hours. But again, if it does, I'll try to do my best at covering it when it happens, as we always do on the channel. Damn, I missed the whole thing. It's okay, Thomas. Just go back in the chat and start from the beginning. No worries, buddy. Can we get Crae's possibility? Again, I'm trying to not talk too much about like player options right now, just because those are separate discussions. But Crae is a possibility, but by no means do I think he's likely. Chick-fil-A, grilled or fried? Ooh, see, now that's a good question. Fried nuggets. Fried nuggets for sure. What options are left now? Reportedly, what we know, it's 3 people internally in the Mets organization. Outside of that, we have Josh Burns for the LA Dodgers, Bobby Heck for Tampa Bay. That's really all we know. That's been reported. That we don't know anything beyond that right now. So we'll see. You too, Frank. Appreciate you, my guy. Thank you for the continued support. Did I see the Martino article, the recent one that came out over the past hour? If so, yes, I did. James, what's up, my man? Long time no see. I missed the live streams. Hope all is well. I'm doing great, my man. Hope you're doing well too, James. I know you've been a great supporter on the channel, so thank you for chiming in. I appreciate that, buddy. I like the idea of having a triumphant... Wait. Ladies, man, you're throwing me off for a second. Sucks we don't get Chick-fil-A in the UK, only KFC. I did not know that. I learned something new today. Let me make it clear. The Mets can sign people when winter meetings happens, but that's a while from now. And the point is that they have hires in that make those moves. Sandy Alderson should not be making those moves. Steve Cohen should not be making those moves. Let's be real here. Those are people that should have their hands out and let people that are supposed to be president of baseball operations and GM do their job. So that's why these reports are so important. Free Chick-fil-A almost every Mets home game. Can't relate. I don't know how the terms of Sandy's contract right now, off the top of my head, but it's not really extensive. I think Sandy will not be here long term at all, and I know Sandy will not be here long term either. Sandy is backing off of President Baseball Ops because the Steve Cohen is the one that's taken charge, from what reports have now indicated, on going after these executives for the position. Steve Cohen has been the driving force, and Sandy's kind of on the side, sharing his input, but he's not the main guy making things happen right now, which is completely different than what it was last offseason where Sandy was running everything. Who do we get if not Burns or Heck? It's either going to be someone internally or it's going to be other options that have not been reported. It could be a Brian Sabian who's been of interest from wanting to come to the Mets, but there has been interest the other way around, reportedly. Freestyle Cespedes diss track right now, and I'll donate $10. Oh my goodness. Putting me on the spot. I really don't think there's, you know, I don't think I can do, I can't freestyle a diss track. I'm not that advanced. That's why I'm doing this stuff and not, you know, getting my stuff on Spotify and balling out and being the next big thing, the rap game. But what I can tell you is that if there's one word to describe Cespedes, it's boar. Or pardon me, wild boar, if you want to go too, right? Literally. I loved you. I loved Yoenis during his time with the Mets. First, like 2015, 2016. But after that, everything was just a complete shit show. Absolute shit show. That was the embodiment of the Wilpons. And Roy Van Wagenen literally lying, saying that Cespedes is out for this reason, that you know, he like he was out. I'm trying to remember. I think he said he was out because of like golfing incident. But in reality, Cespedes got hurt because he was evading wild boar on his ranch. That's not captain mentality. It is what it is. Sometimes you just don't have it. I'm starting to think we roll without a president of baseball ops and just hire GM. I think that with the longer this continues with losing out on people that would be a president of baseball operations fit, that increases the likelihood of it just being a GM and going from there. Yes. We should target pitching before offense this offseason. I think the Mets are going to have, you know, their hands in everything this offseason when it comes to targeting people. And I know that pitching will be a heavy part of it. Yes. And we'll be talking about that more on the channel fairly soon. Cespedes is a free agent. I'm only looking down, folks, because I'm just checking updates right now for you. Make sure I don't miss anything before we get out of here. All right, folks, but to recap what has happened to this point, if you either forgot or you're just chiming in, whatever it is, Brewers denied access to Matt Arnold, even though it was a promotional role, which is definitely not a good look. But they have since extended Matt Arnold, so it makes far more sense as to why that transpired. Deja vu of 2020 in the sense of the Mets not having executives available to them, just like what happened last year when they first started their regime with Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson. Steve Cohen has been in charge. He has been the driving force, according to recent reports, in the search for new hires in these positions, far greater than what Sandy is and versus what Sandy's role was a year ago last offseason. Will the Mets stay in-house? The Mets have been weighing and considering in-house options, but whether they stay with them or not, or stay going external, that is yet to be seen. Should the Mets inquire and actually consider Brian Sabean, the former longtime president, GM for the Giants when they won 3 World Series? I don't know why I blinked there. In the 2010s, reported candidates include that are external: Josh Burns, Bobby Heck, and others. And so I almost have a gut feeling that the Mets might go with a name that has not been reported yet. So we'll see, folks. A lot's going to happen. I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. But more than anything, I just want to thank you all so much that chimed into this live stream, the latest news on the New York Mets and their president baseball operations / GM search. I hope you guys enjoyed, and rest assured, when more information comes out, significant information, I'll be on the channel as soon as humanly possible, as soon as I am available. It could be right away. It could be a little delayed, but no less, we will get it in there and have the discussion, everything that needs to be said on either hires, denials again, or everything in between. And everything Mets related, more great videos are coming out on the channel, so stay tuned for them. Thank you all so much for the continued support, folks. Love and appreciate you all, and I'll talk to you really soon. Let's go, Mets, baby, and let's try to get this thing resolved fairly soon, I would say, before it's too late, right? All right, talk to you guys later.